Hello everybody, Mr. Tomato here. I'm going to be starting a new Let's Play series, and it's going to be of Croc, Legend of the Gobbos. The reason I'm starting a new one when I haven't quite finished Ratchet & Clank is because some of my files were corrupted, and this is for like the 6th time this has happened while I was playing Ratchet & Clank. So I'm going to have a little go on this and just kind of get the annoyance of that out of my system a bit, and hopefully by the time this is done I'll get straight back onto it again. However, because why not, I was reading the book of Croc, Legend of the Gobbos, and the introduction is actually quite funny, so I thought I'd read this as a little kind of introduction to the game before we actually start playing it. Excuse my voice, I have a bit of a sore throat, so... The introduction. The Legend of the Gobbos, in which the Gobbos are described. Who were the Gobbos, you might ask? Examine the paintings from the time of their civilization, and you will find that the Gobbos were short, furry people, who could be politely described as gerbilesque. But what of their soul? Their character? One historian wrote that the Gobbos were among the most advanced civilizations of their day, making great strides in science and literature, a people whose intelligence shines like a beacon in the night. It should be noted that this historian was himself a Gobbo, and not only made numerous grammatical errors in his account, but also misspelled the word Gobbo. No, the Gobbos were a simple race. A race whose greatest inventions were edible deodorant and the wind-powered cow moistener. In over 2,000 years of existence, the Gobbos only sent 3 of their kind to college, and 2 of those were returned postage due. Okay, so they weren't the sharpest pins in the cushion, but were they lovable? Damn straight they were lovable. So lovable that they would often keep each other as pets, but oddly enough, it was their lovability, their very kind-hearted innocence, that set in motion a chain of events that would send the Gobbos plummeting towards a terrifying fate. A fate worse than death. A fate so frightening that those with heart conditions may wish to stop reading now. Although it really isn't that frightening. Part 2, in which a crocodile is found. It all started one morning in the 3rd month of the year of the soup spoon. At the start of each year, the Gobbo High Priestess would announce the kitchen utensil that, when put down their pants, would bring good luck to the Gobbos. The Gobbos took this very seriously, although some began to question the practice during the year of the electric can opener. King Rufus the Intolerant. People far and wide have heard of King Rufus the Intolerant and feared him for his name alone. Of course, the Gobbos knew his full name was King Rufus the Lactose Intolerant, and therefore only feared him after a big bowl of cottage cheese. King Rufus was ruler of the Gobbos, and he was down by the riverbank, watching the sunrise. He had just finished breathing a sigh of relief that once again the sun had returned, when suddenly a small basket floated ashore. He and a group of his Gobbo subjects huddled around it, peering inside. They saw a baby crocodile. Naturally, they assumed that this must be the early leader in the annual midget crocodile basket race. Not that they had ever beaten such an event, but you never know about these things, and many of the Gobbos placed bets to be on the safe side. After a couple of hours, when no other baskets had come by, the Gobbos decided that perhaps there was no race. It had been pulled off the night before by crocodiles who had shared their concern that the sun had gone away for good. The Gobbos were at first very wary of the little reptile, but were quickly won over by his vulnerability and inquisitive nature. King Rufus decided that the Gobbos would raise the crocodile as one of their own, and that he himself would care for it and instruct it in all the ways of the Gobbos. The Gobbos fell in love with their new charge. As he was a crocodile, they began to call him Crocodile. But then someone thought of a new clever name for him, Croc, although to some of the Gobbos he will always be known as Mr. Funsocks or Choo Choo McBoogie. Croc learned quickly from his Gobbo friends. He surprised them with just how Gobbo-like he was. He could sing their anthem backwards and forwards, and won every Gobbo dance contest he had entered. In fact, little Croc was so Gobbo-like that it never even occurred to him to take a single bite out of a gobbo. As far as he was concerned, he was a gobbo, and thus a time of great joy reigned in Gobbo Valley. Croc was healthy, King Rufus was happy, and his subjects hadn't had so much fun since the year of the 3-minute egg timer. Then Croc grew. Part 3, in which Croc is a gobbo no more. In one fantastic growth spurt, Croc grew as tall as 3 gobbos stacked on top of each other. He started eating like crazy. For breakfast alone, he ate over 150 buckets of peas. While walking, he would accidentally smash through buildings and trip over homes. A simple game of patty cake with friends would lead to multiple contusions and internal bleeding. Despite his friends' efforts to brush off these accidents, Croc began to feel out of place. Just as Croc decided to do something about this, a gobbo ran past, screaming, "Dantinis!" Part 4, in which trouble comes to Gobbo Valley. The Gobbos had long told stories of the Dantinis, a band of villains known far and wide for their ruthless burning, wanton looting, and marvellous singing voices. The Dantini Glee Club would have won all the big choral contests had they not been disqualified for eating the judges. What was worse was that wherever there were Dantinis, Baron Dante would not be far behind. King of all villains, Baron Dante was stronger than 1,000 Dantinis, and he had long established hatred for all things Gobbo. He had seen the Gobbos and Croc being blissfully happy, and decided that enough was enough. It was time for the Gobbos to suffer. The valley had swarmed with Dantinis, as they had captured Gobbo after Gobbo and threw them into cages. Dantini watched it all, laughing his horrible laugh. King Rufus knew he had to save Croc. He tail-swiped the gong that had sat in the centre of the village, and it rang, summoning Beanie the bird. She appeared immediately, and King Rufus instructed her to whisk Croc away to safety. Rufus looked at Croc. "You are our only hope." Before he could say anything, Beanie spirited away in a shower of magical sparklies, just as Baron Dante snatched up the king in his iron hand. And Part 5, in which Croc realizes his calling. Baron Dante had taken over all of Gobbo Valley. He used his magical powers throughout the land, turning good creatures into evil. Ladybirds, ducks, lizards, fish, and even mountain goats all became horrific monsters under his command. Baron Dante stashed the good Gobbos under Dantini guard throughout his new kingdom, so that if he needed someone to taunt or even bring to tears, a cute little Gobbo would always be nearby. The Gobbos, meantime, being a highly social group, were distraught at being separated from each other. Baron Dante kept King Rufus as a personal pet, locked in a cage in the back of his castle. Rufus was taunted day and night by the Dantinis. He consoled himself in these dreadful hours that at least Croc was out the Baron's reach. In the meantime, Croc and Beanie the bird watched as their homeland was turned into Dante's playground. Beanie told Croc that he must act, but Croc was confused. What could he do against the might of Baron Dante? Beanie grabbed him by the straps of his backpack and shook him with all her bird strength. "You're the only chance we have. You must help. Can you imagine what it's like for a Gobbo being all alone?" Croc sniffed. He could very easily imagine what that was like, and he had felt more alone than he ever had before. Straightening himself up, he said to Beanie, "All right, but I'm going to need your help." Here, the legend becomes fuzzy. Historians are unsure as to whether Croc was actually successful in saving his friends, but one thing is for certain. From that point on, he became the greatest champion the Gobbos have ever had. And that's all the intro actually is. It's just a little story with some funny jokes in it. But, yeah, we have to save all of the Gobbos and make the day happy again as a crocodile. Because that's just how games were, and how they should be. Thank you for listening, and I hope you tune in for the next video. Goodbye, everybody.